Hi, everyone. Joel Arnold from ID for Me. Thanks so much for taking the time to check out our 5-part series called From Prospect to Sold. We're going to cover a range of topics. We've got our influencer and head expert coach, Adam Joske, with us. He's going to take you through all the hints and tips that you need to know to be a high-performing agent and how ID for Me can get you from prospect to sold. First episode we're covering today is building and managing a farm area. Now, I've worked in sales a long time. I think I'm familiar with this, but Adam, how you going?
Good.
What's a farm area, mate?
Thanks for having me. A farm area is probably not what it sounds like. We're not all got cattle and crops. A farm area, some people call it a patch, some people call it a zone. And really what it's about having an area that you're focusing on, that you're an expert in. You know everything about the area. Everyone knows you. You're building relationships and you're becoming the go-to person or the attraction agent for that particular location. To give you an idea, just about every successful agent I know, they run, let's call it a patch for the sake of this exercise, and they run a patch. Ideally, most agents are running around 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Newer agent, more inexperienced agents, I find, tend to deal with too many people. They've got 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 people in their database. And I think what the best operators do is they've worked out that if they're better off managing 1,000 people consistently, often and well, rather than spreading themselves too thin and not building those real strong relationships.
So the idea of it's a numbers game, high volume, you're actually saying it's not that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Look, there's been research done that they say, what do they say? I think it takes 9 to 12 contacts with someone before they remember you.
Wow.
And I think that people who are running a patch of 1,000 homes, they've got that ability to communicate with someone, 5, 10, 20 times per year. So you would hope that over a year or two, all these people are going to know who you are. And then when they're thinking about someone, they say, oh, hang on a second, I'll call Joel. He's stayed in contact with us. Now, if you've got too many people that you're looking after, that communication might get diluted to once or twice a year. And really, my belief is you're wasting your time because they're just not going to remember you.
Yeah, right. Okay. So for those watching, I guess the first question they would be asking themselves is, well, that sounds great. How do I start? Where do I start?
Yeah. And it's a great question. And I think that the technology that we've got now and the platforms like ID for Me, it gives a huge advantage. I mean, back in my day, 30 years ago when I started in sales, the theory was the same. Have a section of homes, own it, know it, market to it, start relationships in that area. But the only way that we could do it was literally drive house by house, take a photo of the home and door knock it, or maybe, hope for the best that you're going to meet people over the years. With ID for Me, it's incredible. I mean, to be able to plug in Smith Street, Melbourne, and be able to have everyone come up who lives in that particular street and literally put one by one into your database and create that farm area. To be able to have those names of people who own those homes, to be able to have their phone numbers, to be able to have their email addresses is just a huge advantage and a great way to start.
So you mentioned there a place to start. So I would imagine we've got people watching here that are established as well as brand new. You've done some sessions with our team about this, but maybe if we just start. So you're established in an area, you have a certain amount of contacts. What are the things that happen to that data set that you need to be aware of? What I'll leave it open there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I find is that there's a lot of outdated data.
Yeah,
and there are agents that I've worked with over the years who may have built their database or built their patch many, many years ago, but the challenge that agents have is maintaining it.
Yeah,
and data is only as good as the accuracy. So with tools like ID for Me, where you can actually plug in, like we said, Smith Street, look at last contact date, have verified information, verified emails, having emails that are verified, having phone numbers that are connected and active.
Yeah.
It gives you live data and recent data so you know that what you're working with is your best possible place to start.
And if you're brand new, is it just as much as, defining where you want to focus?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I always say to people, it's funny you ask that question, because there's a lot of people who are new to real estate. They know that, okay, I'm going to have 1,000 homes. I'm going to own that area. And one thing that I always say is, I say to when I'm speaking to young agents or new agents coming into the area, I say, what area do you like? It's important that you like the area. It's important that you like the architecture. It's important that you can relate to the homeowners in that area. So, for instance, if you were in an area that was all retirees and the average age is 70 plus, and you're a young 20-year-old coming to that area, maybe that's not the right area for you. I know for me, when I was 30 to 40 years old, the patch that I focused on was very much like-minded, like-aged people who I knew I could relate to and had a stronger chance of winning business.
Yeah, right. And you did a session with us about, when you've defined your format and you've, I guess you go through the process of making sure that the data is updated. But how frequently in your experience, how frequently are those high performers making sure they've got the right information? And then secondly, when you've got that patch and you've got that information, what are the things that they're doing with that audience? Do they just call them? Do they email them? I mean, you've given us some strategies before around segmenting, the people within your patch, but it'd be really good to just get your idea of frequency of keeping that data up to date. And then what do you actually do with it?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we touched on it earlier. It takes 9 to 12 contacts before someone remembers you. And I think that, the best agents that I've worked with, they have a real mix of phone, email, and post.
Mm-hmm.
And they would communicate with people up to 10 times a year. Now, if you want to communicate with someone 10 times a year and you want to be memorable to those people, you can't call them every month. There's just not enough to talk about. I think you're ultimately going to be hassling these people.
Yeah.
So I think where the agents excel is they might make 2 phone calls a year to these people, but they've got really good insights that they might be emailing and posting. It might be market reports. It might be talking about market trends. It might be talking about articles around interest rates and how that's going to affect the market and what's happening out there. So by providing good, relevant, and up-to-date information with people, that's what they want to know about. And how does this affect me as a homeowner?
And I would imagine that some agents might feel, I don't know, a little bit, I don't want to use the word silly, but, we've spoken a lot about just doing simple things really, really well. You were talking about insights, market reports. You've also said to us in some of our sessions around just little things like, I don't want to, I think it was your bin collection days changing or something relevant within your community. Just tell us, how important are those little things?
Yes.
And, what's been your experience with the way that people in your patch respond to that?
Yeah. It's important that, like we said, if you're going to communicate with someone 10 times a year, for example, you can't just say the same thing. And I think that if you can, there's 2 types of marketing. There's property marketing with a CRM, with a database, and then there's content marketing. And I think your property marketing is around your newsletters, telling people around properties that have been listed, telling people about properties that have been sold. But if you can become the trusted advisor and let people know about interest rates, let people know what's happening with the train line might be down for a particular period of time, which is, I think, what you're referring to. Letting people know about new developments in the area, letting people know about a new school, or there's a school fete, or shops that are opening up. There's so much to talk to people about, and it doesn't always have to be real estate. What it's about is being the trusted person in your area that is the go-to for all things in your area.
Yeah.
And I think that the agents that mix it up with property marketing, but also content or community news, are the ones that are most valued by the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we asked the question, where do you begin?
Yeah.
A couple of different ways you could do that with ID for me. Generally, you as the agent would need to define your area, but there are certain things that we can do to help that, particularly in different states. So if you're able to define your patch or your territory, there's property databases where you're able to extract that information from. You can provide that to ID for me. We can then append new information, so phone numbers, emails, etc. That can be really, really helpful in the context of that frequency of checking whether or not your information's out of date. Other things that obviously the people at home can do is, if you're looking for single house searches, or you've got a listing within a particular area that's within your patch, there's certainly some things that you can do around highlighting the street that you're in, Smith Street, for example, in Melbourne. And you can actually go into the platform and search either side of the house and across the road to try and find those owners. The other thing that can be quite helpful as well, you mentioned, if you're a young fella selling into an area that's, with a different demographic, maybe that's not the right thing for you. Conversely, though, if you are actually looking for an age group or a demographic, another great thing you can do in that street search is actually do what we call a range search, which you can target the age of the people that you'd like to try and talk to. And I think that would be a question to you. You've told us before, when you market to your patch, you need to make it relevant. So, for example, if you've got an aging demographic, I'm assuming you're not going to want to show them 5-bedroom houses with 3 bathrooms, right? Like, you're going to want to make that very targeted. Is that the right way to go about it?
Yeah. So when you're running your patch,
Mm-hmm.
it's really important, and all good experienced agents know that it's important to market to them with good, relevant information. And one of the biggest problems that I see agents do is they blanket market. So if you're targeting Smith Street, Melbourne, for example, it's fantastic to have a tool that you can say, okay, let's send some communication to everyone in that area around superannuation or around age living. And with tools like ID for Me, you can say, okay, let's look at Smith Street, Melbourne, but let's put into ID for Me, let's find everyone over the age of 60. So we can send stuff that's relevant for them and some stuff that will be interesting for them, rather than blanket market the area where people are just going to probably opt out and never want to hear from you again.
Yeah, I think, it's awesome. Again, coming from a different sales background, being able to choose the audience that you want to talk to. How good is that? For example, I hear a lot of the time when we talk to customers that, I feel a little bit awkward about reaching out to everyone. It's like, well, actually, no, you don't have to reach out to everyone. You need to reach out to the people you want to target, and this is the tool.
Absolutely. And the other thing about ID for Me that's fantastic is if you want to, again, go to Smith Street and you're only looking at Victorian style homes and you want to market to those people, this allows you to go to Street View, have a photo of the home, and target those people and call those people who've got Victorian homes. You might say, Joel, I know you own a Victorian in the area. I've got buyers looking specifically for 3-bedroom Victorian homes. Now, ID for Me gives you that ability to be able to do that. So again, target market and hit certain people in certain categories.
So another great tool within ID for Me is the fact that you can trust that the data is verified. So what you'll see on the right-hand side is last seen date. What that means is this is when the information was collected and categorized as being up to date at that point. So a great thing you can do is, in terms of ordering the data, if you click the little last seen, it'll put it in chronological order. So that can give you a bit of an insight in terms of chronology as people move around. Another great thing with the tool is all the data is verified. We have a number of suppliers that we've worked with for a number of years, where we aggregate this information from. The other thing that's really helpful, we've now released a smart search tool that allows you to interact with a platform more in a natural language type approach. You're able just to put in very basic information. So I'm looking for Joel Arnold in Templestowe, for example. It takes away some of that, the nuance that you need to have learned how to use the platform in the past. The other thing that's really helpful there is you can say things like Adam was mentioning, a range search around age. You can also do the same with, I want to look at 4-bedroom homes in a particular suburb. So you've got that ability to break down at a level of detail so that you can actually start marketing to people in your patch that do want to hear from you, and avoid the people that perhaps might not be that interested. Adam, anything else in terms of managing the patch that we want people to finish this episode with? Maybe one or two key insights. What's the main thing that they want to remember?
Yeah, look, I think the main thing is to do it consistently and to do it often.
Yeah.
It's a matter of staying in contact with these people until they remember you, and you ought to be someone's agent when they need an agent. And I've seen too many agents drop off early because they're marketing, they're calling, they're doing all the right things. They don't get a return from their database, so they stop the good activities. Database management, running a patch is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's about doing these things for many, many years, doing them for 10, 20 years, and eventually you start getting the returns. And that might take a year or two before people know who you are, but then you start getting the returns. I don't think that I've met a high-performing agent that doesn't run a patch or have some sort of equivalent system.
Awesome.
And I think that agents that don't run with a system, they're generally at what I call the mercy of the market, which means when the market goes up and things are great, they make more sales and earn more money. When things are tough, they don't. Agents that run a system, they tend to be pretty consistent year after year after year.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's episode 1. Thanks for the insights. Farming area, best topic to start with. What are we talking about in episode 2?
So episode 2, we're talking about how to utilize ID for Me at your open homes and auctions to create all your attendees into prospective listings.
That sounds like a good idea. Thanks, everyone.